Okay, folks, how's it going? It's been a while. Hope you're doing okay. We're just going to do a bit of English speaking practice. So if you want to have a chat, come on board. You can come and say hello. I'm going to put a link in the chat box. So if you want to have a chat, just click on that and you can come on through. Maybe we can have a chat. Up to you. But for today, we're just going to we're just going to explore different news and stuff like that and see what is happening. How are you? How are you? What's happening in your world? Hope everything's okay. Hope you're finding opportunities to practice English. That's why we're here. Hopefully more consistently, but that's important, isn't it? Consistency is very important. So let's have a look around. We're gonna put the clock in there, so I'm gonna try, if I can, to aim for like a 10-minute limit for each area. Now I don't really know where I'm going to look yet, but let's see if I can find something that's good. Now I said we'll look at some news, so we're just gonna look at some news and hopefully think about I guess things to think about. Of course, sometimes the problem with the news is that it can be a bit serious. So hopefully we can find something that's not well, I don't know, maybe too serious, maybe not serious. I don't know. Let's see. I'm not sure. There's nothing that's really sticking out. I'm not sure. What do you do when you practice English? Do you use the news sort of websites a lot? Let's have a look here in opinion. Let's see if maybe sometimes it's hard to maybe this is a bit too serious for the with in terms of like the type of newspaper. Maybe it's a bit too serious. Need something a bit more relaxed. Let's have a look here. So Saudi Arabia Football, MBS's giant ambitions. I don't know. Obviously, it's going to be about Saudi Arabian football. Let's see if I can make this bigger and see. Now, we won't necessarily, I assume probably like if you're interested in a story, you'll probably read through the whole story. But I'm not necessarily going to read through the story, but one of the things I think is good is even if you could only read part of a story or if it's too long, you can still get some vocabulary or expressions or structures that you can perhaps use. And always, I think it's a good idea to find some things that you think are useful. If there is something, find something you think that's useful, particularly in terms of vocabulary, and then make a list and have that list prioritized, and then try and actually do something with it. Be active with it is my suggestion. So I think that's an important thing to bear in mind, because it's not just, this is what I try and tell people, it's not just about receiving. It's the same as if you go, oh, look, I practiced English today because I watched some TV shows in English, and that's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's good if you can do something more than that. There's a much greater benefit. So say, if you are watching a TV show, you watch the TV show and then you talk with a friend about it, or you stop at different points of the TV show and talk about what they're wearing, the location, the acting, the direction, all that sort of stuff. Whatever you think is worthy of talking about. So let's have a look at this story and see if there's anything worth talking about. I like it when they tell you the approximate time to read. So it's 2 minutes. So this is going to be very quick, I guess. So Saudi Arabia Football serves MBS's giant ambition. So MBS, I'm not sure who MBS is, but I assume it's a person because it's a possessive, and then you talk about a giant ambition. So the Saudi crown prince is taking the football world by storm. I like that. By storm. To take something by storm. I'm going to make a note of that. So let me just go here. So to take something by storm. So as I mentioned, so you make a note of something, and then when you get to the end, you can see if there's anything that's useful. If it is useful, then you can use it again, of course. So you can take something by storm. In this case, what we're taking by storm. In this case, taking the football world by storm. Okay, so I know where we are here. So recruiting international football stars for his country's clubs at the cost of hundreds of millions of euros. It's a way of both diversifying his economy and also laundering his image. Okay, this is interesting. Laundering, because when we think of to launder something, I guess there's a couple of things that we think of. When the most obvious thing to launder is clothes. When you're washing clothes and you go to the laundry and wash clothes. Or you use a washing machine, all that sort of stuff. And I guess the other common connection that we use with the word launder is money, particularly if you're talking about criminal activity. So there's dirty money from criminal activity, and when you clean that money, it's able to be used freely, I guess. So then you hear about money laundering as the noun, but to launder money. So maybe let's add that. So to launder something, an image or money, sort of thing. Okay. All right. So if we go back, where are we? Okay. So all right. So let's have a look through. Okay. So I can see already here. So Mohammed bin Salman, aka MBS. Aka, sometimes people will say Aka, but AKA is also known as. So I'm going to actually note that down as well, because that's actually, I don't know, I don't seem to see it as much these days, but it's you still see it from time to time. So also known as. So particularly if someone has like another name, in this case, or like could be like a nickname. Or something. In this case, it's like an abbreviation. You often hear it actually, I guess, with like criminal figures. So maybe it's, I suppose lots of things like sports stars as well. Like, who was it? Like, what's the guy's name? Valentino Rossi, like in MotoGP. He was known as, if my memory serves me correct, he was known as the Doctor. And so you could say Valentino Rossi, aka the Doctor, for example, and that's why you have it in inverted commas. Okay, Sonia, how you going? Long time no see. Hey, how are things? How are things? I hope everything's going well. It's been a while because I haven't been here in a while, but I hope things are going well. So. So Mohammed bin Salman, also known as MBS, has big ambitions and big resources to satisfy them being the big ambitions. De facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. So maybe he's not the actual ruler, but the de facto ruler he's the one who's basically running the show. So maybe you have someone who appears to be the leader or the top person, but someone else does the actual controlling, if you like. So in this case, he's the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia at the age of 37, alongside his aging father, King Salman. Okay, that makes sense. The Crown Prince wants to transform the Gulf's largest petro-monarchy. Petro-monarchy. I'm not sure what a petro-monarchy is. I would guess it's something to do with petroleum, but I'm not 100% sure, but not important, let's say. Yeah, this is another important thing, I guess, to think about is like, if something's in some text that you're reading, and maybe it's good information, but not necessarily vital to know, we can just sort of let it go. And if you really want to go into it, you can research it after. So renowned for his Wahhabi. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation. Wahhabi conservatism. Now, I'm not sure. There's no guarantees, but let's try and see if Wahhabi is in. If you use Youglish, you can. Oh, we do have Wahhabi. So if there's a word you're not sure about the pronunciation of, Youglish is a great tool to check. And in this case, we can see there's 82 instances logged in here, at least, of this word, which I think is Wahhabi, but we'll soon see. We can check if they. What can we check? We check the pronunciation, of course. Let me just check the sound is connected. Okay, so we'll turn on the. So let's have a listen. Okay.
Picture in the Wahhabi ideological picture.
Wahhabi. Okay, there we go.
Day, Wahhabi, Salafist, the
Wahhabi. Okay, good.
1962, the Saudi-funded Muslim World League has promoted the construction of Wahhabi mosques around the world.
Wahhabi mosque. So Wahhabi, I think that's right, Wahhabi.
In which a Wahhabi fundamentalist.
Okay, so Wahhabis. Okay, I think that's right pronunciation. So we can see very quickly different ways or different people saying this, and you can see at the top here as well. You can select different types of pronunciations from different English-speaking places in the world. Not that necessarily one is better than the other, but if you're, for example, you want to practice understanding a particular type of region, let's say, this could be a useful tool to select particular regions. In this case, it has all, so that's okay. But of course, it's a good thing as well to see if it doesn't have that on here, but listening to, these are all native English areas or countries, but if you, it's of course good to listen to non-native English-speaking areas as well, because not everyone, is a native English speaker. There you go. So good to see that you're fine, Sonia. Yes, happy to hear from you again. So thanks for coming by. Okay, let's get back into it. So this Wahhabi conservatism. So I checked that just for the pronunciation. If you think it's an important word, obviously you can check the pronunciation or not. It's up to you. So into a modern regional power capable of attracting the best foreign talent to diversify its economy, has a plan to achieve this. Vision 2030. Okay. So his latest weapon is the round ball. The transfer made official on Tuesday, August 15, of Brazilian player and star of Paris Saint-Germain, Neymar, to Al Hilal, I think it is, one of Riyadh's clubs, enshrines. Okay, it's an interesting word, enshrine. So to put something in a glorified position, if you like, enshrines MBS's strategy of making world-class sport one of the main instruments of Saudi soft power. Okay, all right. Interesting. Let's see how much more of this. Okay. Well, we won't read too much more, but let's maybe do one more paragraph. So its conquest of football stars began earlier this year with the acquisition of five-time Ballon d'Or winner Cristiano Ronaldo from Portugal by the club Al Nassr, who are paying him the highest salary in football history, 200 million euros per season. Then it was the turn of Frenchman Karim Benzema of Real Madrid, another Ballon d'Or winner who succumbed to the siren calls, to succumb to something. I like that. I'm going to take that. For me, I feel that's a bit more of an important word, depending in the context. So, that was not the same. I don't want the same sort of thing. So that was a copy and paste of that. So to succumb to something. So it's like to, I guess, to give in to something is when you succumb to something, particularly when there's pressure for something. So it was to succumb to what? So in this case, he succumbed, or he succumbed, I guess. No, succumbed. Okay. To the siren calls of Jeddah's star club, Al Ittihad, I guess. I think Ittihad. I'm not going to search this one. On a contract worth 588 million euros. He was followed by another Frenchman, N'Golo Kante, who also signed for 3 years in Jeddah. So far, only Messi has resisted temptation of a $360 million check from that same club, preferring instead the charms of Miami. The charms are the nice attractions. I guess in this case, the attractions can include the paycheck, of course, but also it could be the weather and that sort of thing. Okay, so now this is not all of the stories; it's part of the story. But if you go down, you can read more of the story. There's a couple more, 3, 4 more paragraphs that you could read if you wanted to. Now, I guess the thing to think about with something like this is, like I mentioned before, is when you read something and you take something in, even if it's only a few paragraphs of the story, we can do something with it. So in this case, I've written down some vocabulary that I want to practice. So what I can do is I can say, okay, so if I want to talk about taking something by storm, obviously you need a good context for that. So I'm going to try and use that later today or tomorrow. I'm going to try and use that as much as I can. So when I'm speaking with people, when I'm writing emails, any sort of contact, let's see if there's an appropriate situation where I can try and use it. Now, in this case, it's probably not the most common term that you will hear, but I like it, so I want to use it. But you can prioritize, of course, what words or expressions you think are the most important for you to use, depending on what the situation is. Maybe you're just having a general conversation. Maybe you're in a workplace discussion about something. Maybe you're just talking with friends and family. It depends. Yeah? So obviously you can choose. Another thing to think about doing with this sort of story that we've read, we can also think about how can we talk about this. So we can either do a summary. So if you've got no one to talk about, you can do a summary. Say, for example, into the voice recorder, into your smartphone. You can talk to people. Have a chat with someone and talk about whatever the story is. You can ask questions about the story. It can be, I guess, directly from the story or inspired by the story that you've read. So, for example, like this story, I would have some questions about the strategy. Now, I don't know exactly what's included in this Vision 2030. So I assume it's a comprehensive plan on how to develop the future and how to position Saudi Arabia. But so I don't know that. So I guess I put that as the context. But I don't know. What do you think? I would question the amount of money here. And I would ask, what is the goal? What's the purpose of buying all of these players? Is it just for marketing and publicity and getting people talking about Saudi Arabia, talking about Saudi Arabian football? It's an expensive marketing exercise, don't you think? I mean, I don't know how long it would take for them to break even. So that's a nice. I'm gonna write that down because I like that. and I haven't actually used that for a long time. So I'm going to try and remember that. So it's to break even. I've lost the rid of that, and we'll go. We want to keep that same. So we go to break even. I'm not sure if you would hyphenate that. So it looks a bit easier to read if you hyphenate it, but I guess you could have it without that as well. I'm not sure if you would have it. Maybe sometimes, okay, it could be all one word. But I think it's a bit easier to read with a hyphen in there or a dash in there. So when you break even, you have the it's basically whatever the costs were or expenses, the income that you receive for that is the same. So if something cost you $100 and the income you receive from it is $100, you break even. Yeah? So you haven't lost anything, but you haven't made a profit as well. So you break even. So getting back to the point. So I wonder how long or if they would break even with these large amounts of money, because this is a lot of money. So even if we just look at these two here, so this is what's that? That's almost 800 million euros. That's 800 million euros but the Ronaldo one, I guess, is 200 million per season. I'm not sure how much this is per season. So this is, I don't know, I guess I could investigate, but let's say, for example, maybe it was 5 years. So maybe let's say like 120 million a season. This is 200 million a season. So that's 320 million a season just for these two players. And you've got all these others. I would question the value. I don't know. What do you think? I would question the value. Here's what I think. If the target is, say, for example, we want Saudi Arabia to be in the semi-finals, let's say quarterfinals or semi-finals of the World Cup by, I'm not sure when the World Cup years are, but let's say by 2032, for an example. So by 2032, we want Saudi Arabia to be in a football World Cup semi-final. We can say to contest, if you want to use a different verb, to contest a semi-final. I'm just going to have a cup of tea here. That is delicious. Chamomile again today. Chamomile is very soothing, I find, but I digress. And so if that is the target, or if we're talking about the participation rates for football for the younger generations of Saudi Arabian football. So I guess like we're talking 2032, what are we now? 2023. So we're talking like 9 years. So maybe if we're talking about the players who are sort of around, I guess it could range from around maybe like 12, 13. So that'll be what? 20, 21, 22, around that sort of time. So players who are around like 12, 13 up to around maybe 20, if those players are potential players with good skills for the national team can be developed and supported, that can perhaps create the momentum for the national team. Because I know Saudi Arabia, I think they did all right at the last World Cup. But yeah, and if that was type of a target, I don't know, I think that would be more justified, but without having read what the actual vision for 2030 is, I would question, because that sort of money, there's a lot of money to be spent on current players who are at the end of their careers. Good for publicity, but at the end of their careers. Whereas now, if you had them and they were also, yes, it's good that they're playing with the people who are the players from Saudi Arabia who are playing, but if they could also get help the younger generations that are slowly coming through and help inspire the other, let's say, kids who are, thinking about should I be playing football and that sort of stuff. That's an added bonus. Well, but I do wonder if some of that money can be transferred, to the grassroots. That's a nice expression. The grassroots. So basically, it's the grassroots of, let's say, particularly of a sport in this case, but of an organization. Basically, it's the ground floor or the entry level of something. So if you're talking about sport, if you support the grassroots level, you're talking about, like, say if you've got kids and you take them to play football or some sort of sport just at the local park or something, or playing in a semi, just like a locally organized event or team or something. All of that sort of stuff is grassroots participation. So that's what I think. Okay. So, and the reason I'm talking about all that is just to give you an example of things you could talk about. So it's not necessarily directly talking about the direct content of the story, but you're talking about something inspired by the story. And of course, not everyone's interested in every topic. Not everyone's interested in sport or football, but and of course you can search around then for something that's a bit more suited to your tastes and that sort of thing. But let me see if we can find some other news. Let's go to the BBC and let's see what's around. So on BBC, they're talking about, there's a plane crash in Russia. Maybe we'll avoid that. What else is there? There's lots of, I guess this is interesting. We've got two Indian stories at the same time. This is very, I guess it's interesting, isn't it? Without actually going into either of these stories, you can see on the left, I might make that a bit bigger. So on the left, you can see, earlier, well, I guess about, 12 hours ago or less. So India had a space probe, I guess you'd say, or landed something. And although I have to say, like, the actual unit looked a bit it looked more of a game when the unit landed. But anyway, when it had something land on the moon, or the south, there we go. It says here the south pole of the moon, which I guess is different. Yeah, so near the moon's south pole for the first time. So that's I guess the other times it was the North Pole, I'm going to guess. But it's interesting. So we have that technology, sophistication to demonstrate that. But then when we go across, we also see in India, at least 26 dead in India railway bridge collapse. So then we consider the technology and the amount of effort that goes into one thing. And then we have to question, well, what's the value there? How much of a how advanced can we say they are? Or maybe that's unfair. And there you can have the discussion, about that sort of thing. How should we recognize a country's achievements? Now, I guess these are perhaps two isolated events, and it's not everything. But how do we rank a country's achievements where they've just landed on the moon, but in terms of, let's say, a more general construction or general activity and things that have been happening for, I don't know, 150 years or something, or bridges even longer, not just railway bridges. We can't get that to be done in a safe way, or in a way where people die. But something to think about, I guess. But maybe a bit too macabre, perhaps. But interesting. And I guess, this is a interesting story as well. So, owner of Pakistan cable car arrested by police. Did you see this? Did you see this story yesterday? I think it was yesterday, wasn't it? Yeah. It's a fascinating story. And even like watching it, and it's fantastic, of course, that everyone was able to be rescued from there. And really interesting how the first, 12 hours or so, they weren't really able to rescue anyone. I guess they were part of that was setting up the alternative paths, I guess, or instrument to do the zip line to do the final rescues. But only like one person, and perhaps that was the person who needed the most immediate medical attention or something. Perhaps, I don't know. But it was interesting that they took so long to get the first person, but then when they had everything prepared with the zip line, it seemed to happen very quickly after that. So that was, I guess, using that the locals and their experience or whatever. That's interesting. But I guess with when they're talking about the arrest, it's interesting how things work, isn't it, in society? Who's to blame for something? Who's responsible for something? I wonder if let's click here. I think this is just the video. I'm not sure if this is an actual information here. My God. Okay. Oh, this is actually. Hold on, let me see if I can get rid of this. So, my God, this is people in there. That's an incredible image. That's an incredible image. I can't imagine how scary that would be to be in that sort of a situation. That's amazing. That is amazing. So I don't know if this plays or not. Let's see. So this is I don't know what it would be like to be in there and you've got this drone going around there. I guess it's good in one way because the drone can get clear detail and everything, but you can just see there it's just hanging literally by a thread, by just the one cable. I don't know how that works normally because I guess there's supposed to be two cables, isn't it? So one of the cables came off. I don't know about you, but after, I guess, you hope everyone gets rescued and saved and everything, but I have to say my immediate reaction to this is even if this is locally done, and I appreciate the efforts that needs to be done to, like it says, because I think if I remember right, is like if they have to follow the roads and go down or whatever to go to school or whatever, it takes 2 hours. But if they use the cable car, it's like 4 minutes. So obviously that's a huge time saving, of course. But it's with anything like that, I do wonder if, I don't know, because I heard a few different stories of the person. Well, first I heard it was an engineer who did it, or who put up the cable car in line, and then I heard it was a mechanic. Maybe it's an engineer and a mechanic. I don't know. Maybe they're two in one sort of thing. But I always wonder what's the backup plan, and normally I wonder if there is a backup plan for this sort of stuff. But I do wonder that, sort of going back to perhaps a bit more seriousness, I do wonder with this sort of thing if, when you look at the expense, I don't know how expensive these things would be to create, but obviously they were able to put this up in the first place. So I'm not sure how much more expensive it would be to do this with a few extra safety mechanisms. Maybe this was safe enough because it was able to keep, sitting there for how long? Was it 15 hours or something, wasn't it? So obviously there was some safety mechanisms, but I don't know. It makes me wonder. Like, so then, if you look at a country and then you go, how much money are they spending on? Well, I guess the obvious one is like military and that sort of stuff. How is it that there can't be more resources in more areas to help these people? And of course, it's very advantageous if you're talking about people going to school and that sort of stuff. So instead of having 4 hours to go to and from school or to work or wherever they may be going, so instead of 4 hours, you've got 8 minutes to travel. Obviously, that's extra time for study, extra time for more productivity and all sorts of things. The cost of whatever, making that safely with local government, regional government, federal government investment, I just wonder how can't they do that? And then, so like I go back then to the whole point of the story is like, so we can see here. So police in Pakistan have arrested the owner of a cable car that left 8 people stranded and dangling over a ravine when it malfunctioned. So while maybe it's not ideal, I'm sure in many parts of the world there are workarounds, let's say. So there are workarounds just to make life quicker or easier that are perhaps not the safest, not the best. And they're done because there is no funding. There are no resources coming from anywhere else because those resources are spent on, maybe the parliament and the ministries need to have that really thick paper. Have you ever been to like a government department and you feel their paper? I've seen this in a few countries. The paper is like very beautiful, very nice. And when people sign it, it's like it's not going through. It's like a very good quality. It's sort of maybe like, was it 100 micrograms or something? I'm not sure the exact measurement, but 100 or more sort of micrograms. It's like it's very, very nice paper. But of course, that sort of stuff costs money, and I wonder like where all the money. And I'm sure that this is the same for if you're talking about rich economies, medium economies, poor economies. There are all sort of lots and lots of examples of abuse of abuse of resources, and let's say not efficient use of resources and money and that sort of thing. But so here it sounds as though we're looking for, here's a nice word. I'm gonna note this down as well. We're looking for a scapegoat. So we want someone to blame, and of course it looks like we're going to blame the most immediate person that we can. The most obvious person that we can blame is the person who put up the cable car. I don't know if this person was making money from it, maybe, or like they're charging people, or if it was just there, or whatever. But see now here, okay, so let's say so the incident happened in, this is the place I'm guessing, so it's sparked a massive rescue operation lasting more than 12 hours. So officers detained this person, Gul Zareen, perhaps, on multiple charges, including endangering valuable lives. It's an interesting phrasing there, rather than just endangering lives, but endangering valuable lives. I wonder if there's a lesser charge of endangering invaluable lives or ordinary lives. But anyway, endangering valuable lives and negligence. But I wonder if the same sort of charges could be brought against the people that never put up this sort of system, or the people that perhaps local officials knew this cable car was there and never did anything. Never said, oh, okay, nice idea, very good for the economy, very good for education, getting the kids and everyone to school and stuff, but let's get this checked out, let's make it safer. I wonder if all those people who turn a blind eye, that's a nice expression as well, to turn a blind eye, let's get that down. So to turn a blind eye to something. In this case, turning a blind eye to the cable car, or the lack of safety or appropriate safety with the cable car, perhaps. I want to, and even then, if you go sort of, I guess, to the national level, I mean, I wonder if at the national level, if they didn't know about this sort of stuff in different areas, maybe they should know about it. Is that negligence in itself by not knowing what's necessary, in different parts of your own country? Or is that negligence, not being aware, not asking people? I don't know. That's what makes a good representative. What makes a good leader? I don't know. I happen to think a good leader is someone who's able to listen. What do you think? I mean, I think it's someone who's able to listen, and perhaps the leaders and the representatives, to make the distinction between, perhaps there are more representatives than leaders, true leaders, that is. Perhaps with the representatives, they weren't asking questions and they weren't getting the information. Is that negligence? And if it is, I'm pretty sure that's not the type of negligence that, they can be arrested for, even if it is negligence. Because I'm sure that type of negligence is happening all over the world. But I'm sure for things that we might consider not as important, like the thickness of the paper, like ensuring that there are enough cars to transport those representatives to different appointments, or fly them to places, or make sure that their meals are appropriate, so they're well nourished, and that sort of thing. I'm sure they've paid attention to those sorts of things. But I don't know, is that too harsh? Perhaps that's too harsh. I don't know. So the arrest comes after a child who was trapped in the chairlift. Is it a chairlift? I'm not sure if this is a chairlift. I think it's a cable car. It's not a chairlift. I think a chairlift is when you're sitting in a chair, like at a ski resort sort of thing, that sort of thing. But anyway, said he feared it was over during the ordeal. Nice word. When the chairlift was halfway there, its rope broke. It was dangling and I was terrified. I can imagine. That would be, and it's not just that it's dangling there. It's dangling there and it's like for hours and hours and hours. Can you imagine? It's like 12 plus hours. It's like you're just sitting there and and I'm not sure if you saw when this was happening, when the helicopter, the person coming down from the helicopter, I guess trying to give messages or supplies of different types, like the way they were swinging and that sort of stuff. So I guess it's naturally windy because the drop was, what was the drop? It was like 275 meters or something. Incredible stuff. And so, okay, well, it says there in the next couple of paragraphs. But the like the wind so blowing around. So if you're sitting in this cable car and I'm sure there would have been a bit of swinging. I guess you can imagine with every gust of wind. Yeah, terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So a military chopper rescued one trapped child, while zipline experts recovered the rest of the group after dark. I have to say, when I heard that they were stopping the chopper at dark, so I thought you could, I don't know, I guess it depends on but you could sort of have enough lights, like they can with football stadiums and stuff. You just bring out the lights and you can bring in temporary lights. I would have thought, during the 12 hours or whatever, they could have shipped some lights to go there, so there could be enough, but I'm not sure the range, but nevertheless. I thought when they said they're not going to use the chopper anymore, I thought, how are they going to do this? And I do wonder why. I guess it just takes time for the zip line to be done, to have the better connection or whatever. But so I'm sure it was a terrifying experience for those poor people. Absolutely. I just, it's like you can try and imagine, but it's just, it's unbelievable. I think like you can sort of imagine, because it's like you imagine it for a few seconds and then you sort of go away. But to actually live it for half a day or more is extraordinary. So while zipline experts recovered the rest of the group after dark. So the group had been, there's a nice past perfect there, the group had been on their way to school when two of the cables snapped. Wow. I wonder how many cables they have. I saw some other pictures of other cable cars afterwards, and some of them seem to have like loads of cables. I'm not sure what the standard is, of course, but it seemed to be. I guess the more the better. I guess it depends on the strength of the cable as well. Now here's a good word. It was left hanging precariously, dangerously, of course, but precariously. What a word. 274 meters. That's a lot. 274 meters above the ground in high winds. There we go. That's exactly what we were saying. 900 feet. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I guess another thing I wonder if they ever thought of, what's that called? Not bungee jumping, but base jumping, I think it is. I wonder if that was ever considered. I guess there's room for danger with the winds and stuff, but I wonder if that could have ever been a consideration. If worse comes to worse, to give them like a parachute or whatever, something to wear. So if for whatever reason it started falling or whatever, if they could find a way out, at least then if they could release a parachute, that might have been able to certainly slow the fall and the descent, and maybe be able to save them. I wonder if that was a consideration when they were organizing their efforts. Then again, I guess, and again, this is an example of where you can talk about, different sorts of possibilities, different ideas inspired by the story. So again, this is just an example of ways that you can practice English and use English to think about different ideas and learn and practice different vocabulary. That's of course the objective. But I guess on the flip side of that sort of idea is you'd have to consider the weight. You don't want to put too much extra weight in there, because I assume maybe they had some sort of calculations on how how heavy the people were and how much weight load would be possible, and they wouldn't want to add to that unnecessarily, I guess. Yeah, but I don't know how heavy they are as well. So I guess that's it's a last resort. Yeah, it's a tough consideration, a very tough consideration. So where are we? So it was like doomsday for the area, said Fahim Uddin Shah. Now, excuse my pronunciation. I'm not going to be good with a lot of names, unfortunately. The uncle of one of the rescued children. Okay. Everyone rushed out of their homes to observe the operation. I guess that's completing the sentence because he didn't say that, I guess. That's the assumption. A kid from almost every household was here. A kid from almost every household was here. Does that? I guess it means to watch what was happening. So I guess that just means everyone was there watching, as opposed to in the up above, because that would mean not too many households. Pakistan's army said the rescue mission had been extremely difficult. Again, had been, good use of past perfect, because we're talking about the past of the past, because this happened yesterday, and when this was written, this is written in the past, and we're talking about a time before that, I guess is the easiest way to say it. Had been extremely difficult and dangerous. The incident happened at about 7 a.m. local time on Tuesday. I wonder what time school starts. I'm just saying, like in Australia, our school, if I remember correctly, school always starts at around 8:30. I think that's right to say. It's always around 8:30. But if they're going to school at 7 o'clock, and I've seen like in other places, school or kids, whatever, going to school at like, before 7 o'clock, like 6:30, 6 o'clock. I was like, I don't know if it's just because, because I've got some places they have daylight from very early hours, so it makes sense to start school earlier, I guess. But and I guess perhaps in some places as well, it's a more comfortable time. So the incident happened around 7 a.m. local time. That's 2 a.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, on Tuesday near the city of Battlegram, I'm going to guess, in the province. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is my guess. Okay. So 6 children aged between 10 and 16 years were trapped, along with 2 adults. One of the children, a teenage boy, has a heart condition and was unconscious for several hours. Wow. And an adult on board an adult on board told local media. So Sonia's saying, in my country, students go to school at 8 a.m. So that's the time they go to school? That's the time they go to school, or that's the time that school starts? Well, I assume that's the time they go to school. So maybe school starts similar, like in Australia, like 8:30 or 9 o'clock sort of time. And so you go to school early and you can like play games and stuff in the playground, I guess. It's the normal sort of thing. But to me, yeah, that's a more sort of common time. But I guess every sort of locality and country has their own sort of style, that sort of thing. Okay, so school starts at 8. Wow, okay. Okay, that is an early start. But not too early, I guess, compared to... so maybe they were going across, so it's 7 o'clock. So I don't know how long they have to then walk to school. So maybe they say they walk 10 minutes, had other people as well to get across. So maybe they were getting to school early, play some games. Maybe they were starting at 8 o'clock as well. So yeah, maybe it could be very similar. So one of the children had a heart. So a child also fainted due to heat and fear, a rescue worker told Reuters news agency, although it was unclear if it was the same child. Now, I guess you can hear also when I'm reading through this, I'm trying to use a bit of, I guess, emphasis and changing the modulation, changing the tone of my pronunciation as I'm reading through the story. And this is a good thing to practice as well. Not just for when you're reading stuff, but there'll be times, of course, when you have to read stuff, but also maybe when you're just presenting information just from your from your mind. And so when you're saying stuff, of course, changing the modulation, changing the tone of your voice in different stages, giving different emphasis to different things, can do a few things: draw attention to what you consider the important information, but also to maintain interest. Because if it's a very monotone way of speaking, it can get very boring and people can fall asleep, I guess. So when we're practicing speaking, that's a good thing to practice. And I guess with that, again, if you have like a voice recorder, or if you have a smartphone, you generally have a voice recorder app in there. Most of the voice recorder apps, I think, have like, what would you call it? Like an equalizer sort of thing, where you can see the levels of the voice. But as you like record, and I know it's strange to hear your own voice and stuff, but as you, like if you record yourself and your voice, you can see how the voice changes and stuff. And you can see if the voice is maybe too flat and there are not enough peaks and troughs, or if there's not like little bursts of energy or emphasis. So say, for example, if we look at this last paragraph again, we can see, so a child also fainted due to heat and fear, a rescue worker told Reuters news agency, although it was unclear if that was the same child. Now, you can choose what you think are the most important words or the most important information there. So, so what would I choose? I guess I would say a child, because we mentioned child in the previous paragraph. I don't think I necessarily highlight child, but certainly fainted, I think I would highlight, and then the reason for fainting. And then I would probably highlight they're not sure if it's the same child, so unclear, I think I would highlight. So I think I would say, sounds a bit strange because I'm actually saying it, but I think I would say, so a child also fainted due to heat and fear. So you can leave a little pause, but also push it out. Now, it doesn't, just because it's written with the exclamation marks, doesn't mean you have to emphasize that, but I guess that's the obvious thing to emphasize. So a child also fainted due to heat and fear, a rescue worker told Reuters news agency. So for me, it's like who said that is not particularly important, but in other situations, it may be important, or maybe you feel that is important. So it's your choice. Yeah, when you're telling it, it's your choice what you think is important. And again, I guess with something like although, you have the chance. I guess it's a natural break after the comma there, or after the pause. So it is an easy thing to emphasize. So although, you could say, but in this case, I'm just going to go through, say, although it was unclear if it was or if that was the same child. So a child also fainted due to heat and fear, a rescue worker told Reuters news agency, although it was unclear if that was the same child. That's how I would say it, as an example. So we've just broken down that paragraph, but again, that sort of thing is another thing that you can do to practice your speaking, and also, I guess, to to practice the way to gain attention or keep attention of people when you're reading something or speaking something. Okay, so let's see. Okay, we might leave that there, because I guess that's enough of that story. But like I say, we don't always want to go into every story. But now this is the good thing as well, is when if you go to a news site or a blog site or something like that, when you have the options of like these tabs at the top, so you can select the areas of interest, that can be very useful as well, of course. So if you want to talk about business sort of stuff, you can click on business, the business tab, to look at the sort of vocabulary that they're using there. Or if you're into, well, let's say science, again, you can see what they've related to science and that sort of thing. And they've got different areas here. So you've got like climate change, you can see all of the stories, you can find what you like. Of course, I'm sure you know all this sort of stuff, but it's just good to highlight. That's all. There's a more section as well. There's not too much more in the more section. Newsbeat. I'm going to guess Newsbeat is. I'm not sure, but this could be for younger learners, shall we say? But let me see. Oh, there's no guarantee. Because sometimes I know, like in Australia, there was a part of the national broadcaster in Australia, similar to BBC, I guess, where they would have an area of the website that could be used for kids. Now, what was that called? I can't remember what that was called. But anyway, but I guess this sort of thing can be common. And I guess as well, one thing you can think about is, say, for example, you've got a story. And if you're thinking, okay, I want to try and summarize this story. So we haven't touched this story at all. What is this? Cost of living without a job, I'd have to turn down my uni place. Okay. So one thing you could do is like read through the story. And if you want to practice summarizing or getting the main points of the story, a good thing to do would be like going through, and then you write it can be a summary in terms of text, it could be bullet points, or however you want to present the summary. But I guess a useful tool now is if you use something like ChatGPT, you can put in that text and you ask it. And of course, with ChatGPT, one of the important things is you've got to ask the right sort of question, I guess, of what the task you want it to do. But you can ask it, for example, to give me a summary of this story and explain or summarize the main 3 points of the story, or something like that, or summarize this story into 8 bullet points, something like that. And what you can do now, there's not necessarily a right or a wrong, but it can be useful to check what the result is from something like ChatGPT. And maybe there are other types of summarizers with using AI, artificial intelligence, but I'm not sure. But as an example, and just compare what you've got compared to what they give you as a result, or it gives you as a result. And it's just a good thing. Now, like I say, there's not necessarily a right or a wrong, but it can give you a chance to compare. And, consider if you would maybe add in some of the points, if you want to rephrase some of your points. And similarly with ChatGPT, you can get the points or whatever that they say, and you can ask it to paraphrase, or ask it to say the same things in different words. And again, that can be good for improving your vocabulary, because certainly one good ability that, as I'm sure you would do in let's say your native language, if it's not English, I'm sure one thing you're able to do is to explain something. And if someone doesn't understand, you can use other words or other examples to explain it. And to have that ability with English is certainly a great asset as well. So asking it, how would you summarize this? How can we summarize this using different words? That sort of thing, to paraphrase. I guess is a good activity to use. Thanks for the tips. Very useful. I hope so, Sonia. Thank you. Yes. I mean, I think some of these are maybe like a bit sort of too basic, so I don't want to sound like condescending. I'm sure people know or use some of these anyway. But I guess it's good to let's say like remind people of some of the opportunities that there are, because sometimes it's always good to be reminded to do different things. Okay, we're gonna leave it there for today and for now. Thanks very much for watching. Any comments or questions, just leave in the comments, or if you've got any questions, you can send us an email. You can see the email scrolling down the bottom, or you can put a message in the comments or somewhere, and we can have a look at that. But I will see you again next time. When that next time is, I'm not sure. Once again, I'm trying to find a good schedule, but hopefully will be more frequent in the coming months. But thanks very much for watching. Have a great rest of the day, morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Hope you're having a good time, enjoying. Catch you next time. Bye.